Hey guys, are you looking for a sportsbook that you can trust? Well, look no further than mybookie.ag, where you can get a 50% match on your initial deposit of up to $1,000 when you use promo code DFSArmy. As a bonus, when you use promo code DFSArmy, you also get a free month of DFS Army VIP and DFS Army Beat the Bookie membership. That's a $100 combined value. So we'll help you with your daily fantasy sports and we'll help you with your handicapping. Free when you sign up for mybookie.ag using promo code DFS Army.
In 2015, an elite DFS Army Commando unit formed to bring high-level DFS strategy to the masses. Today, hated by DFS sharks and lineup sellers alike, they continue their quest to turn Joe into DFS pros.
Alright, welcome to the Taco Tuesday PGA DFS podcast, presented to you by DFSArmy.com. This week we will be headed for yet another inaugural event. We're headed to Minneapolis, Minnesota for the 3M Open. And before I get into the course of the event, first I gotta remind you guys that at DFSArmy.com, you can not only check out the full version of this podcast, you can access all of our daily fantasy tools, the research station, breaking down everything statistically you'll need for this golf event, and of course our domination station, lineup optimizer, all sports included in one low package cost, awesome coaching channels, you get coaches' notes for every event that goes down. It's really awesome stuff. It's a great one-stop shop for all your daily fantasy needs. DFSArmy.com, and use promo code TACO to support the pod. So, going to Minneapolis for the 3M Open. This used to be a Champions Tour event, actually. It's one they would run yearly. It's going to be hard to use that to predict what's going on here at the inaugural event for the PGA Tour. You know, the young guys are probably going to do it a little more dirty than the older guys did, and for the most part it really was like a birdie fest for those guys. Now, I mean, it's not going to be as bad as last week, you know, having a 25 under winner, but you could still see, you know, some pretty low scores here. As long as you keep out of the water is going to be a big part of this. It's protecting some key holes, including 2 par 5s, and you know, that's going to add to the overall variance of this tournament. You know, that and it being a first-time event. You saw last week, you know, with another first-time event. Didn't really know what was going to happen. Most of the studs ended up doing horribly. Dustin Johnson at $12,000 was coming in at 5-1. He missed the cut. So you never really know what's gonna happen at a new course like this, especially when there's, you know, water in play and you know, not as many par 5s as last week. You know, one of the par 5s was converted into a par 4 for this tournament. They've actually made, you know, some measures to toughen up the course because they couldn't just play the same course that the Champions Tour guys do. It was one of the easiest courses on the Champions Tour, and the PGA guys would have a field day. It had really wide fairways, but they've gone ahead and narrowed some of them down. It's still going to be very easy. The greens are humongous. Yeah, it's not going to be that hard overall. They have lengthened some tees and made some holes a little longer, which makes a lot of sense with how long these guys hit it. But you know, a lot of it's up in the air. All 3 par 5s actually are really close to each other in length, just a hair under 600 yards each, and with water in play in 2 of them. I think eagles might be a little bit hard to come by, but as far as everything else, birdies are on the table with a lot of these par 4s. You know, par 4 scoring is going to be huge, between 400 and 500 yards. That's pretty much the key range that we're looking for. There's 1 par 5 that's slightly over 500 yards, but you know, still there's half of the course pretty much in that range. And you know how, you know, par 3s don't really affect fantasy scoring all that much. It's really the par 5s that do, with, you know, a lot of these just being 3-shot par 5s for pretty much everybody. It sort of kind of equals it out, just makes it a birdie hole. The par 4s are where you're going to want to be looking for your guys to be solid at. I think that's where a lot of the birdies can be made up here. And, it's another weak field. We've got Dustin Johnson. He's not here. You're pretty much replaced by Brooks Koepka, and then followed by Matsuyama and Jason Day as far as strength goes. So, not very top heavy, or just a really overall weak field. This is the Midwest swing is off to a pretty slow start as far as commitments go. Maybe one day people see it as more of a prestigious event. I don't think last week's event, the Rocket Mortgage Classic, is ever going to attract very many people. And if you look at like the John Deere and other places like that, not the strongest of fields that go there. So it's honestly kind of a lull before the Open Championship in a few weeks here. And that's fine. You can't be exciting all the time. Honestly, golf is a little bit more exciting in the spring than now. And honestly, some of the European Tour events are really good. This is where the PGA Tour events aren't quite as interesting. But you have some really strong European Tour events like the Scottish Open and I think the Irish Open, Rory McIlroy's tournament, and a lot of the best golfers in the world. Like John Rahm, who came runner-up last week in Spain. They're going to be going over there instead of going to these weirdo courses and what's honestly flyover country. And I say that as someone from the Midwest myself. So yeah, overall what we're targeting here statistically, I'm kind of looking at double bogey avoidance, just guys who aren't like crazy aggressive, but at the same time, I do want guys who are crazy aggressive. As far as scoring goes, because if you don't find the big double, triple bogeys from hitting in the water or just getting too far out here, it is going to be very, very easy. It's not going to be a course where we see a lot of pars. People will be birdieing quite frequently. You can just cough it back up a whole lot, and that'll kind of strike people randomly. Honestly, I think a lot of people are starting to get on the same page. I don't think Brooks Koepka is going to be very popular, break 20% ownership after what DJ did last week. And, a couple of ways you could attack that. You could go back to the Stars and Scrubs lineup like everyone had last week that burned them. Or you could just say, just screw the guys up top. They're way too expensive. Probably going to find ownership just because they're the names that people know. Although, honestly, the field that you're playing against this week is probably going to be more of your diehards for fantasy golf. I don't think a lot of the casuals are really signing up to go blind into the 3M Open. So yeah, you can see the weakness of the field just after the first 4 or 5 guys, pretty similar to last week, except even more so. You got a lot of really questionable guys that are priced well up there. And honestly, the way I see it, if someone's over 20% projected ownership for me, I'm probably going to fade that. A few guys that, really stick out in that regard, who I would like. Otherwise, they're just, there aren't very many good plays that I think everyone can agree on them being really good plays, like guys in really good form. A lot of the expensive guys are shaky, unproven guys, or guys that are just, performing a lot differently than they usually do. It's going to be a really, really tricky week to make lineups, and honestly, if someone's going to be popular, I don't think there's much reason to play those guys, no matter who they are. There's definitely no locks here. I mean, hopping into the field here, you can look at Brooks Koepka, 11,900, and you were getting Dustin Johnson for $100 more last week, and he was 5-1. Well, Koepka's 7-1, 8-1, depending on where you're looking. He's really shined at majors, obviously, but his last 2 non-major events, he's finished T50 in Canada, and a couple weeks ago at the Travelers, T57. Makes a lot of birdies, don't get me wrong there. Definitely going to be someone that can, attack the par 5s and all that. It's just, it's kind of apparent that he doesn't bring his A game when it's not a huge, important field. He's not going to care really about, playing it safe with the cut line. I'm sure he really doesn't care about making or missing the cut. He's probably just going to take the shots that he either needs to practice or Just shots he feels like taking. He has the liberty to do that. He's come, top 2 in the last 4 majors. I think at this point he's earned that. So, for Brooks, honestly, I'm just going to be off of that. I don't see his ownership getting over 20%, maybe even not even over 15%. Not after what DJ did last week. And, he obviously has the highest upside of anyone. Number 1 in projected round score, projected fantasy points per round. There are the 3 long par 5s here, and he ranks 3rd in the field in those. But you don't have any of your short par 5s either that he really, really carves up. 2nd overall on that, but also in the key range, the medium and long par 4s, he's 5th and 2nd in those categories. I mean, obviously he fits the course. Obviously he projects out for the most fantasy points, but for his salary, I really doubt that you have to go there. It's going to be really hard to make lineups if you roster him, especially paired up with anyone else above like 8K. Pretty much has to be Koepka and then some punts, and it could work because honestly the 9, 8, 7K guys, they aren't all too inspiring. You almost might just want to go with a safe commodity, but I don't think he's that safe for the kind of stud he is. He's the world's number 1 golfer, but usually when a golfer that's number 1 in the world tees it up in an event like this, I don't feel the need to roster them no matter what, unless it's like peak Tiger back in the day. Not trying to overreact too much to what Dustin Johnson did last week. I'm just saying, it's just not the way to go in this tournament format. I'm trying to get him as much as I can over on draft.com, where ownership doesn't matter. Him and Matsuyama, just whoever I get first between those two, I'm happy with. And that's probably what I'm going to do with these guys. Of course, if I had to pick anyone in the top 2, it would be Matsuyama. Although Matsuyama's pretty close in price to Jason Day. Actually, he's a bit higher in the odds books, which makes a little sense. Day has a little bit more pedigree than him, but Matsuyama's been really, really hot lately, or just all season long, making all of his cuts. He projects out to perhaps be one of the highest owned guys, if not the highest owned guy, because it's hard to really nail one good play. Like there aren't too many people that stick out big time, but Matsuyama, 6 straight or 5 straight top 25 finishes, and this year he has. You just look at this entire year, the last 26 events he's played, 82% field rank. That's best in the entire field. And if salary wasn't a thing, obviously he would be the safest play of anyone on the board. Definitely safer than Brooks. Doesn't quite have the upside. I mean, he has not really been posting podium type finishes. Just been super rock solid and consistent. Starting to score less, birdies and fantasy points and stuff, but I still like what he's been doing. Getting 3.6 birdies to the field on average. He just doesn't really have much eagle upside, I guess. I mean, he can eagle. He just doesn't do it very often. It's just safe. He's about making that money. Great for cash games. I'm probably going to play him in cash games. Get him in other places, and then just fade him in GPP for how popular he's going to be. Potentially. He could be a little lower owned than expected, but it's really hard to peg where the ownership is going to go this week. It's the options are very, very limited. Going down to Jason Day at $10,900. He started out at 10-1. Now he's currently at 9-1, as where Matsuyama's at 10-1. So he's kind of beaten him in that regard. Of course, he's nowhere near as safe as Matsuyama, as he definitely doesn't mind missing a cut or two. He only makes 70% of his cuts, as where Matsuyama makes about 95% of them. He's struggled on easy courses. So far this year, at 5 easy courses, he has a 64% field rank, compared to Matsuyama, 86% there in 8 events played. The good thing about Jason Day is that he usually loses strokes approach, but he's kind of turned that around and has at least become pretty decent in that regard. He's gaining strokes in every single category. And funny enough, putting is the category he's been gaining the least over the last 10 rounds, which, Jason Day is perhaps the best putter on the PGA Tour overall, just throughout the year. So it's kind of interesting to see that. He does struggle a bit on bent grass compared to other surfaces. Not terribly worried about that this week. These are actual bent grass greens all the way, not mixed with POA or anything. And we've been on a lot of POA lately, so the putting should be a little straightforward. I'm honestly factoring in putting more than usual. Just at POA, you want to factor it in less because it's kind of random. Bent grass a little more straightforward, and guys tend to continue to play well on that surface if they have before. So Jason Day, he missed the cut at the Memorial at his hometown event, but he always does that. He's really terrible at the Memorial. I don't know what it is. He just he can't get it done where he lives. Probably just is badgered by people in a similar regard to Charles Howell III at the Masters or something. I don't know, but for some reason he always sucks there. But if you look past that, it's all top 25 finishes, going all the way back to the Masters. He did miss the cut at the Valspar right after the Players, which he posted a top 10 finish at. I mean, he's been fine in the strong fields and stuff. It was great in the West Coast swing, just super solid, all top 15s there. It's kind of slowed down a little bit, but in this field, he doesn't seem terrible. I think he'll still be fairly popular. Because again, you'll hear as you go through the podcast, if you're a VIP member over there on DFSArmy.com, you'll hear that there really aren't too many great plays to stick out, and you kind of just want to just fish for a play that you think people aren't going to be on. Just go with it. Might as well. So Jason Day, I don't know, he's probably still in the part of the field I'm going to be avoiding as I go more towards either balanced contrarian type roster construction. And since I'm going Matsuyama in cash, I'm not going to take a Day in cash, but I don't think I'd ever really take him in cash, even though he tends to be pretty solid with getting top 20s and stuff. He's always a withdrawal risk at any time. He tends to miss a lot more cuts than Matsuyama, and he's about the same price. So driving accuracy a little bit lower than Mats. His greens and reg actually have been a little bit better than Matsuyama lately, but he loses birdies to the field. That's something you gotta worry about with him. Tends to par a lot. But in Vegas, they've got the exact same top 20 odds, so kind of a similar play, and he's a little bit cheaper. I just think that Matsuyama is a little bit more of a floor there. He's just going to come in with higher ownership. And then down to Bryson DeChambeau at $10,500. He's been off the radar for a little while, but he's put together 3 good finishes in a row after 3 horrible finishes in a row at the RBC Heritage, PGA Championship, and Charles Schwab Invitational. Was 22nd in Memphis, and most recently 8th at the Travelers, tied with Jason Day there. He's second in the field to Koepka in projected DraftKings fantasy points per round. As an 89% field rank on easy courses in 6 easy courses played, and a 96% weak field rank split. So he beats 96% of golfers at the 4 events he's played in really, really weak fields. And this is honestly where Bryson is a specialist at. If you look at all of his wins have finishes of -15 to -25. He does really well at Birdie Fest. Again, really good at the easy courses, weak fields. Pretty good bent grass putter compared to normal, and his putter has been on fire lately, but so have his irons. It's just been his around the green game that's been struggling. The greens are so big, we should see really high greens of regulation this week. I don't think you have to worry about the scrambling quite as much. There's no scrambling out of the water. You either hit that or you don't. So I think DeChambeau actually might get a little more popular than it would seem with his form coming in. Because I don't think I'm the only person that notices this. One thing I do notice, though, is that his double bogey worst percentage is kind of sky high right now. Way higher than Matsuyama, way higher than Day. He does about twice as much as those guys. So obviously GPP only. Like, I think that goes without saying here, but there really is some upside to using DeChambeau, even though his price is really, really up there at 10,500, 11,000 on FanDuel. And you've got a very similar play in Patrick Reed. You know, a guy that has pedigree, a guy that's won tournaments, a guy that, you know, has had some really questionable form over the, you know, what we consider about the medium term. You know, not just the last few weeks where he's been really good. Not really good. It's very similar to DeChambeau, where he had 2 solid finishes and then 1 really good top 10. And that was last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He ended up coming 5th there. It was really solid tee to green. I was leading the field in tee to green after 3 rounds, I think. And usually that's not what Patrick Reed does that well. So I do like seeing that. Usually with this guy, it's, you know, similar to Day, where he's, you know, really bad with his irons usually and sprays it off the tee, is both short and inaccurate, but, you know, he's turned it around to at least be like normal, gaining 0 strokes off the tee over his last 25, and his irons have been just on fire. So is his short game, you know, with his around the green work, but yeah, honestly, I don't know. He's way too expensive for me. I've liked using Patrick Reed as like a pocket play all year pretty much, because people have been way off of him. And, you know, last week, especially in Showdown, he was absolutely great for me. I mean, we honestly crushed it last week. You know, the core went off. We obviously couldn't roster the winner in Nate Lashley. It wasn't possible. But, you know, we had guys in the chat late on Wednesday night, you know, talking Redmond up, getting Redmond in there, and he finished 2nd. We had Rory Sabatini as the highest value play on the board, and he finished 3rd. You know, Malnati did great again. He was a core guy. Really, the entire core went off, including Matsuyama. And the only guy that really screwed us was Sam Ryder, missing the cut by a stroke. Otherwise, it was an amazing week last week. And we want to keep it going this week. And I don't know if Patrick Reed's the way that you're going to be doing that. You know, he doesn't, value-wise, he doesn't rate out better than anyone like 9,000 or above. He's the worst. His price is just way up there. You know, he ranks 35th in projected fantasy points per round. You know, if he was cheaper, maybe it'd be like cash game play. But even then, you know, it's kind of scary. So I don't know. I'll have just a sprinkle of them, but I'm definitely going to be underweight. And you can say the same about Joaquin Niemann here. $9,300 on DraftKings, $10,200 on FanDuel. Oh, I skipped over the good Rory. Let me talk about him real quick, because, you know, this is another guy who is kind of similar to Kokrak, where out of nowhere he's just making all the cuts in the world. So he has 4 top 10 finishes since the RBC Heritage. That's kind of nutty. He's got, like, I don't know, 13 or so made cuts in a row. I think it's like 11, 12, 13, something like that. He's been playing a lot lately, and he's just been posting solid finish after solid finish after solid finish. And finally, that price has caught up to him. Not so much on FanDuel, where I think he's a little bit better of a play, but on DraftKings, $9,500 is insane for Rory Sabatini. You know, I've seen Rory McIlroy at that price, which is just nutty. Of course, it would have to be at like a major there, but still, it's just astonishing what he's doing, honestly. And, you know, he's been doing it by making a ton of birdies, you know, just being solid in every single tee to green, or not even tee to green, like tee to hole. He's gaining strokes in every single category. A lot of them around the green, you know, has been putting really hot over the last 25 rounds. Honestly, his weak spot, I guess, if you want to call it that, is his strokes gained approach. He's gained about 0.3 strokes approach per round over the last 10, 25 rounds. And that's still not bad, you know, especially in this field. He's going to rate out as one of the higher projecting players, even though, you know, it's ridiculous seeing him there. He doesn't have much odds to pricing value, as Neiman and Finau below him are actually have a little better odds, and he has the same as Hovland down there. And we'll get to those guys. I'm gonna give you free guys up to the 9K range just because it's such a crappy field before we go premium here. But Rory Sabatini, God, I don't know what to make of him. He's, I guess, of all the chalk this week, he'd probably be the best chalk, but he's so expensive. And you just saw what Kokrak did after making 14 or 15 cuts in a row. I can't even remember how many cuts in a row he made. Although one of the events, where he, I personally would consider it almost as bad as a miscut. It was like an MDF or like a T73 or something where he just blew up on the weekend. Nonetheless, you could see that out of Rory. I expected it at the U.S. Open. Somehow he ended up making the cut at Pebble at an event he was horrible at, and that's kind of what really got me on him last week. And he definitely delivered. Dude is awesome. So I'm not entirely sure of what to do with him. I'm probably gonna end up playing him because I gotta play somebody. It's really hard to figure out who to roster, and I don't think I want to just go crazy on DeChambeau. I might just leave some salary on the table this week. Honestly, it seems like a pretty decent play. Just focus on picking out those weirdos that less than 1% owned. The Nate Lashleys of the world. And, not to rant too long here, but God, I mean, if you've been following us at DFS Army and looking at our projections and notes and stuff, we've been on Lashley really hard. I guarantee you he would have popped if he would have been rosterable last week and his price was reasonable, which of course it would be. The DS just spits him out constantly. He was always a guy in my notes, so kind of a real bummer we didn't get to capitalize on him winning by such a decent amount, but I am happy for him. It's a really good story with him, so we'll talk about him later here, but anyway, you've got Joaquin Niemann at $9,300. Real nice guy. Signed my hat. I like that about him. But top 5 finishes in a row coming in. Off of a really, really hot iron, or not iron, but his irons are fairly hot, but really a hot flat iron with his putter. He's usually a pretty bad putter, but he turned that around over the last few weeks. I don't really like targeting that too much. Strokes gained approach, he's gaining around a half a stroke, which is pretty decent, but priced up so much for a guy who had missed a lot of cuts honestly this year. It's just turned around recently over the last 5 events, especially the last 2, finishing T5 in both of those, the Travelers and the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Just too pricey for me, even though price might not end up being a factor. By the time I get done fading all of these really expensive guys, he did help in Showdown yet again this week. Showdown's been going really awesome for us. I don't know. I don't mind him in that format, I guess. Maybe I will just play him, more in Showdown, especially if he's showing that he's, going to be making more birdies than he has. But I don't mind fading him in GPP, especially if he's going to be popular at all, which he might, with his game log starting to look really nice. And, people need to spend up the money, feeling the need to spend their entire salary. So, Neiman, and just a GPP play for me, but really, just another one of these fades. Then you've got Tony Finau coming off of 3 straight missed cuts after a runner-up finish at the Charles Schwab Invitational. And before that, he had T64 the PGA Championship, missed the cut there. T60 at the Wells Fargo, pretty much a miscut in my book, even though he made the cut. Very bad Tony Finau, but otherwise he would crush this course, honestly. A big strong point for him. He's top 5 in long par 5 scoring, 4th and 6th in medium and long par 4 scoring, and it all results in him being 2nd in projected round score and 4th in projected DraftKings fantasy points per round. His driving accuracy has kind of fallen off a lot lately. He's long off the tee as always, but he used to gain a lot of birdies to the field. He's been losing birdies to the field a lot, and I know it kind of comes with these missed cuts here, but he isn't quite a slump. Not like a Phil Mickelson slump, but it's kind of getting there, especially if he has a bad week this week. And the only 2 finishes I kind of looked at that wrong, actually. I forgot that the runner-up there was the Charles Schwab, but I was going to say the 5th at the Masters, That was just another top 10 at a major for him, which is something he's been doing a lot lately. But the PGA Championship performance was just pretty bad. He has flashed a little upside there with that Charles Schwab finish, but went right back to the gutter after that. I think it's going to keep people off of him. I like his splits on easy courses. He's played 7 with an 82% field rank, and that should be that's 4th in the field. So yeah, I don't mind him. He's got some upside. I know he's been in crappy form, but maybe a switch to bent grass will help him. He does seem to putt a little bit better on bent grass greens than other types of greens. And underneath him, Victor Hovland, $9,100. Crazy to see this guy cost so much already. It's insane. It's his 4th start officially on the PGA Tour. He was low amateur at the Masters. Well, actually, that makes it his 3rd start. Well, this would be his 4th start, but after being low amateur at the Masters, he came 12th at the U.S. Open. Super impressive, right? Made the cut at the Travelers, but finished T54. And then last week, he finished T13 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Was kind of up there on the leaderboards and stuff. I don't really know what to make of him yet. He doesn't have much data. Only 12 shot link rounds to go off of for him. And, so far in those rounds, he's crushed it with driving accuracy, hitting it almost 300 off the tee. But with a 72% greens regulation percentage, and that's adjusted to the field, gaining birdies, fantasy points, obviously, and just destroying it off the tee. And, approach. Ball striking is his forte. He loses strokes around the green, loses strokes putting, not by too much, but still. And we've yet to see him on bent grass greens so far this year. I'm definitely fading this. There's a little bit of a hype train behind him, and I can't really understand it, so if he burns me, he burns me. But I really doubt this guy is going to be the next, he could be, but at least not right now. We saw with guys like John Rahm, for example. He's someone that came in with just huge expectations. Probably similar to about what we're seeing from Hovland here, with him being just so expensive so early. And now, honestly, the place to get a guy like him is draft.com. I know I kind of shuffle the site a lot. I'm just telling you, it's a great strategy for PGA. I think he's one of those, if I recall correctly, him and Sung J M also that I'm about to talk about. These guys are perpetually way underprojected on that site. You have to go way down the bottom to find them, and it really gives you some edge because a lot of people just go by the default projections, and they've got guys like Kevin Na and Keegan Bradley just way overrated, way overpriced, overprojected, and people pick them over, guys like this who, and whenever I'm drafting over there, I'm trying to just draft the guys I want to fade on DraftKings, just get a little cross hedge going on there. So that's definitely my plan with Hovland. And, that'll move me right into Sung J M, who we've been loving, and last week I loved him quite a lot. He's been good at finding birdies like usual. But it's honestly been a short game lately. It's kind of a turnaround. Before he was the ultimate iron player. He's kind of fallen off a little bit, honestly. But short game has been really strong. Just gonna keep playing him though. This is our guy at this point. Just playing every single week. And like I said last week, I asked him if he qualified for every tournament on the PGA Tour, would he do it? And he said, in America, yeah. Just raking in that bread. He wants to make the cut. So honestly, the course doesn't actually fit him very well. So he's really, really good at short par fives, but there are none of them on the course. None of them on the course, but is significantly worse at the long par fives, and that's what they all are. The 3-shotters. Also struggles a bit medium par 4. So if I were to fade Sung Jae, this would be the week to do it, honestly, with his price and all. But I just like the guy too much. He's adorable. So that'll do it for the free section of this podcast. If you want to check out the rest of this podcast and get access to all the things I mentioned earlier, the full coverage for every site, good personalized coaching, really great community, really amazing non-toxic community, just a great place to hang out and sweat some DFS. It's almost like a family there in the coaching channels. of course, having your the Domination Station lineup optimizer and coach's notes to make getting lineups in last minute really easy for you. You can check that out at dfsarmy.com and use promo code TACO to support the pod and get that lifetime 20% off discount. There should be a link in the description, and you can go check it out, or just go to my Twitter at TacoDFS. There should be a link. They'll send you right to dfsarmy.com. Hoping to have another good week like last week. So I'll be back for you VIP members for the full dive. But for the rest of you guys, I will see you next week.